So we are just a couple minutes after 7 now, so I think I will get started. I would just like to say that OSAC's work and support reaches lands covered by treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10, the traditional lands of the Cree, the Dakota, Adene, Lakota, Nakota, and the Saulteaux peoples, as well as the homeland of the Métis. And we're thankful for their stewardship of this land. So I'm going to just go through, before we get right into the application, I'm just going to do a little bit of a background on OSAC and what we do and how everything works. I'm just going to share the screen. Oh, share screen. Okay, so again, as I said, just feel free to jump in if anything, if you have any questions about anything that I'm referencing here, and we'll get started. So what does OSAC do? So we do have 3 programs. There's a visual arts exhibition touring program, there's a school touring program, and then there's my program, the performing arts program. And so those are our 3 programs. We are a nonprofit member organization. So all of our members use us basically as their admin hub, and we do have some grants and things like that for them as well. We have 43 members, and 35 or 32 of those are performing art members. So they do present performing arts in their season. We recently received this lovely testimonial from the Andrew Collins Trio, which I think really kind of sums up some of the benefits of deciding to apply for and, you know, lucky enough to get a showcase spot with OSAC, and how it kind of turned out for them in the end, and how everything worked. So if you want to give that a quick read, it was just lovely to see, and I think it kind of sums up what we hope the artist experience is for anybody who does apply to showcase with us. So how does a performing arts touring program work? So most of our performances are selected from the showcase performers, but not all. So usually about 80% of the performances we book in a touring season come from showcase, and about another 20% are one-offs, and or you know, other special project type tours that we end up routing through our network. So as I mentioned, we are the admin center for our members. So we handle all the routing, negotiations, contracting, and artist payments centrally, which is kind of nice. You know, if you've got a 20 show tour, if you get one of the big tours, you don't have to go and contract 20 shows. You do one contract with me. We negotiate, and I handle all the routing. You don't have to manage any of that. And you basically just get an email from me saying, okay, here's your route, and here's your contract, and away we go. So the typical fees for our shows for the showcase acts are between $1,000 and $300, or sorry, $3,000 per performance. And there are a variety of things that can play into that: the number of performers in the band, the amount of travel required. You know, certainly a band from the East Coast of Canada, their travel, you know, if it's a trio, their travel here is going to be a lot more than a band from Edmonton or something like that. And then, you know, certainly there's some name recognition and some show saleability and things like that that play a role in that as well. For the larger tours that get booked through Showcase, they typically run 5 performances a week, and the smaller tours typically run on consecutive days unless the artist requests something different. We've had some Saskatchewan artists who have requested to only work Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then so we'll schedule their performances, you know, over a couple of weekends, 2-day weekends or 3-day weekends, or what have you. Obviously, if you're traveling from far away, we're going to route all your tours together. But yeah, it's usually 5 out of 7, so there's usually a couple of days off during the week. And sometimes those are required for travel, and sometimes it's just a lack of venue availability and that kind of thing. That's how it works. So it is something to keep in mind when you are budgeting, that you will have a couple of days where you'll need accommodations and per diems, that sort of thing to be covered. And preferences given to performers that can provide all tech and accommodations. This is something that's definitely different about the OSAC network than most of the other networks across the country and most, talent booking situations out there. And it really comes down to our presenters all being volunteers and having day jobs and all these other things, right? So they're not professional presenters. They're not, working at this 40 hours a week where they're used to, booking accommodations and handling tech. And quite frankly, the amount of professional tech people that are out in the rural areas is fairly small. And there's just not a capacity for them to generally handle that kind of thing. So for the 23-24 season, we are booking, I've now contracted, I believe, 163 performances, and we will pay out about $550,000 in artist fees. So it's a significant number of shows and, a significant amount of money that's going on out there. It's not all roses. We do have some performers every year that don't get any shows or may not get any shows. So in 2022, from the 14 showcase acts, we had one performer that didn't get any shows. We got 2 performers that got 1 show, 2 that got 2 to 3 shows, 3 that got 5 to 10 shows, and 6 that got 10 to 20 shows. So, 9 of the 14 had really good solid tours, and then the other ones were somewhat smaller, right? So there is some risk applying and showcasing. There are expenses to be covered on, that you'll have to cover to get here to showcase. So there, I'm not just trying to sugarcoat it and saying it's all wonderful. There are risks, and occasionally some artists, do not get work from our conference. We've had the question before about why we only have 14 showcases, and it really comes down to the capacity we have and the size of our network. The reality is, of the 120 to 130 applications we get every year, easily the top 30, anyone in the top 30 could typically showcase, and there'd be no drop off in quality or bookability. But with the size of our network, you can already see with 14 showcases, you have basically 3 artists with no shows or 1 show that they're, even those 1 show performers, it's going to be tough for them to recoup their showcase expenses, right? So it just doesn't seem right to us to add additional showcases where we may increase that risk for artists, and that's not what we're here to do. We want to make sure that the people that do apply to showcase with us do have a good opportunity to get some work and book some shows. Here's I would call this a typical tour with OSAC that's happening next year. So this is an artist that has 7 shows that they booked from the 22-23 season. And in this case, they'll likely fly into Saskatoon, and then they'll go North Battleford, Bigger, and Watrous. So that'll be on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They'll have the Sunday, Monday off to travel from Watrous to Estevan, and then a day off to get to Langenburg, and then Nipawin and Rosthern to wrap up the little tour. So that's fairly typical. I would say this routing is about as good as it gets. Like, I typically, when I get the interest from the arts councils, I will draw the most efficient circle I can. And this was just one of those ones where everything worked out. I didn't run into any venue availability issues. The dates were able to kind of stay the way they were. It's not always that way. There are times where I run into venue availability issues, and you might think, I'm backtracking here. Wasn't I just through this town last week? And yeah, that does happen. Occasionally we'll run into situations where we have venue availability like anybody, right? If you do end up touring Saskatchewan with us, there are a couple things to keep in mind. It's good to check the time zone info and the road conditions. We do not observe daylight savings. We don't change our clocks. So if you're coming from Alberta or Manitoba or east or west of there, around the time of the time zone change, it's good to keep track of that. Road conditions, because our tours happen from, basically October 1 till May 15th of the following year, you are in a lot of cases touring through the fall, winter, and spring. It's important to be prepared for the weather. You should be prepared technically. As I mentioned, there's not a lot of tech capacity in the rural markets. There's also not a lot of instrument stores or computer stores. So, if you have a very tech-heavy presentation, it's not a bad idea to bring some kind of backup gear, whether that's a second laptop, maybe a little soldering kits or whatever you think you might need to stay working on the road. And as I said, our presenters are mostly volunteers, so it is a good idea to advance your shows well in advance. They have other responsibilities. Some of them have other volunteer capacities that they fulfill in their community. So advancing, to make sure your arrival time and any day of stuff you need to confirm is all set up. And finally, confirm your travel routing through locals. So certainly you can plug all these communities into Google Maps, but it's always a good idea to talk to the locals and say, hey, we're in Thunder Bay today and I need to go to Langenburg. Google Maps is telling me to take road XXX. Is that the best way? And they can give you some local information on what is the best way. There are some roads in the province that are not great, especially in winter. And then there are some other roads that, they're better looked after. There are some roads that receive some preferential treatment because they go to a mine and things like that. So some of that local knowledge can really help you stay safe and out of trouble. So how do you get one of these tours? Here we go. We're going to start getting into it. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you've got some of the assets that are going to be asked for in the application. So you want to make sure you have a high resolution photo that's going to be suitable for printing and marketing, and an alternate photo for variety if you like. Maybe you want one posed shot and one live shot, or whatever you think puts you in the best light there. It's a good idea to have a biography and another 100 words about what you're going to be showcasing is also a good idea. Your estimated touring fees. So for OSAC, as we've mentioned, all-inclusive pricing, you want to be doing some math, doing some accounting, and trying to figure out what you're going to need to recoup for each of the 3 different touring show levels that we ask for pricing on. Video links, so you'll want a couple of links to videos that are representative of what you plan to showcase and what you plan to tour. We'll go through that a little bit in the application. There's some new documents there to give you some heads up about what is going to work best. Technical requirements. So for most musicians, a stage plot is really all you need, a one-pager. If it's theater or dance or something else, and you have a lights and video plot and a sound cue sheet, etc., you can choose to upload 3 separate technical documents as opposed to just one. So make sure you have those available. And finally, for our application, payment is made via PayPal, so you have to make sure you have a PayPal account. And the final thing I'd just like to go over is what are our juries looking for. So our jury goals are to present the highest quality performers we can within the Arts Council budgets, select artists that will have the best chance of securing bookings. Again, we want everyone who comes to our conference to have a fair shot and a good probability of getting work. We need to provide a diverse group of performers in terms of genre, age, gender, culture, and ethnicity. We want to do this because it's not only the right thing to do, but our funders are also requiring that we meet these criteria as well. And the last thing I would say is, if you're not sure if you would be a good fit for our conference, or you have questions about the application, don't hesitate to ask. You can give me a call, drop me an email. We can jump on a Zoom call, whatever you want. We can review. And certainly I'll, if you want to go through your application, if you want me to read through your application, or if you've got 3 or 4 videos and you're not sure which one might be the best one to send, then we can let me know. Send me the 3 or 4 and say which ones do I think would be best for the jury, and I'll certainly do my best to let you know. Okay. Well, any questions on that? No questions. Okay. I've got this on mute still, or not on mute, but just gonna make this a bit bigger. Okay, so let's get into the application then. Oh, here's a chat. Did I miss something? Are the grants specifically for musical acts, or can a stand-up showcase be considered for a grant? So our grants are actually for our members for presenting. We don't provide grants to the artists applying to showcase directly. Any costs to showcase and or tour are up to the artist, regardless of what genre they are. So there are some funding opportunities to tour though, depending on what province you are. There may be a creative industry association. If you are a musician, a factor tour grant may be available, SOCAN maybe even, Canada Council for the Arts perhaps. So there are some other funding opportunities out there if you like. Anything else before we get into the application? Okay, so I'm going to log in here. So it's just at the iwantashowcase.ca website. Going to log in. Now I've got a couple of different applications already going. Can everybody see that okay? Every time I share, I can never remember if I've shared the screen or just one panel. Okay, so we can go into where to apply. So all of our partner conferences are listed there. So there are 9 different partners now, I believe, that are all have different showcases across North America. And you can decide which ones you want to review and see if you're a good fit for. I'm going to go into ours.
Yep, I think
I've made some fake applications, so let's go with the Skipsters.
Skip, I think we're just seeing an open folder document. We're not seeing the I Want to Showcase website.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me check my screen share. Let's switch to this. How about now?
There it is. Bingo.
All right. Sorry about that. So let me go back here then. Okay, so once you log in, there's basically 3 different buttons you can go to. I went to where to apply. All of our partner conferences are listed there, as I mentioned, 9 across North America. There's Manitoba, North Carolina, Montana, and here's the OSAC one here. So there's if you don't apply for ours, anyone you do apply for, it's good to go into the profile and learn a little bit about the program, find out when their showcase is, find out in our case how long showcases are, and how many showcases, etc. What our showcase provisions are. So this tells you that we have backline, what our backline will include. Certainly if you need something different, we make every effort to accommodate within reason. There are some video tutorials here for each of the sections in the application. which are not a bad thing to review if you're filling out the application. They can certainly come in handy after business hours if you run into a question and are not exactly sure. There is some information here on all-inclusive pricing, so I'm just going to open that now. So this talks a little bit about our all-inclusive pricing and some of the budgets that we basically asked artists to consider. So we do ask you consider about a tank of fuel a day. In our routing, we try to keep the drives to 3 hours or less. And in the tour I showed earlier, I think we hit that except for the one drive from Estevan to Langenberg is probably maybe a little bit beyond 3. Meals, so we budget about $50 per person today. That might be a little light now. Things have gone up a little bit. But our volunteer arts councils are pretty good about making sure you're fed at the venue. Hotels in rural Saskatchewan, most are around 130 a night. There are some newer hotels in some of the communities that are a bit more, but in most places it's about that. Production, so as mentioned earlier, it's a good idea to consider being able to bring your own tech. I would say this, some of our venues are larger, but it's not necessarily that we're gonna expect you to fill a room with sound for 600 people. The reality is any of our larger rooms where you're gonna have audiences of 200 or more, they're likely gonna have house tech available for you to use.
How you doing?
But most of the other presenters, the majority of our kind of mid-range presenters, the audiences are going to be usually between 100 and 150 maybe. So even though they have a town hall that maybe holds 600 for a wedding, the reality is, you're only going to need to throw sound for 100 and 150. So I say the words Bose L1 many times in a year. Gonna have to maybe mute somebody there.
Oh, turn on the light. Oh my God.
I just use that.
So yeah, so Bose L1 is typically all you really need, and you may just need something more, depending on your requirements. Certainly a 4-piece band might have a little bit of trouble running through a Bose L1. And we have had artists that have decided to budget in, bringing a tech with them, which is, within, that's up to each artist to decide what they need to do. I will say that OSAC does charge a booking fee of 5% per booked show to a maximum of 150. And that really comes from the, some of the work that we do, getting all the routing together, doing one contract, and getting the marketing and that sort of stuff together. So do following these guidelines guarantee an OSAC tour? No, they don't. However, all-inclusive pricing is one of the most important criteria that our arts councils consider when selecting performers for the upcoming season. So it is something we do strongly recommend. Okay. Yeah, so again, this goes through the jury criteria. We do have a performing arts directory on our website, and then there are terms and conditions of the application. Okay, so let's get into the apply now. So again, I'm going to make this application for the Skipsters. Yes, take me to it. I guess I've started one. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Create an application for the Skipsters. That's not what I want to do either. Let me pick a different band. Let's go Skip Rock. Try that. I started one. I've been doing a few tutorials apparently. Let me try Sask Beer. Okay. There we go. Okay, so once I've selected the profile that I'm going to apply for this application with, it does give me basically what I had for you earlier. Some of the materials that you're going to want to have on hand. It goes through the criteria and the provisions again. You do have to say that you accept the terms and conditions, and then we can start the applications. So first thing you'll need to do is go into the contacts and make sure all this information is correct. So make sure your name, everything here is correct. If there's anything you want to add, anything with the star is required, and anything that's not is not. So in this case, I've indicated them a self-represented performer. If you have an agent, it will bring up these extra couple of boxes here. So it allows you to enter the job position title and the company name. If you're if you are an agent, it'll ask for that information. If you're a self performer with representation, then it's going to ask you who your representative name is, what their title is, and what their company name is, so that once the showcase is done and we need to move to the booking stage, we can see who we need to talk with. I'm going to just keep it at self-represented performer for now. And then the performer details, which should mostly fill from this directly. There's a spot to enter your pronouns if you like, and then we're going to choose our genre. Let's do country folk bluegrass. There's a second genre you can put here as well. If you do not feel that folk bluegrass Americana fully captures who you are and what you do, you can add some additional descriptive words here if you like. It's not required, but it is. You can add it there if you like. And this is optional as well. If you do identify as any one of the following, you can certainly click on any that apply. And if you're an agent and you want to make sure that the performer is included on any related emails, you can just click that there, and then they will be selected. Seeing as I'm the self-represented artist, I don't need to worry about that. If you do have a technician, you can put their information there. Again, being a self-represented artist in this case, I'm going to say, no, just call me for everything. That's usually the case. If I decide to hire a technician for the tour, I can deal with that at that time. So let's see, and then you basically have two options. You can save draft or you can say task done. So typically, being a fairly straightforward part of the application, I'm going to say task done, and let's see if it says anything. So it says that, yeah, that's currently saved. So now you can go on to the next task. I'm going to leave the payment one for last. So you can tell what's been completed and what's not been completed by these little markers, right? So they've got the anything with the red with the white line has not been completed. So I'm going to go into the showcase info.
Skip,
So for the proposed showcase, I'm just going to open up a folder here.
Can I ask a question, Skip?
Yeah.
That last category, otherwise racialized, I don't think I've ever heard of that. What does that mean?
Good question. I think it means whatever you want it to mean. You know, there's the I think it continues to evolve, and so if you feel otherwise, what was the actual term here? Racialized. If let's see here. So let's say, for example, you're not Indigenous, you don't feel Indigenous quantifies who you are, and you don't feel that Black quantifies who you are, and or newcomer quantifies who you are, but you're not Caucasian, you might want to select otherwise racialized, right? So this to me would indicate that you are a minority of some kind. We do not report. This is not used for any reporting purpose of any kind. It's really just for us to review as we're going through the applications to see that we do have some representation from most, most groups, if not all, that we can. So, it's just, it's one of these things where you try to create boxes, but boxes at this point seem to, change and evolve. And so maybe some of these terms are no longer valid for some folks who, but still feel like they are, you know, in a minority of some kind. Okay, does that make sense?
Clear as mud, but thanks for trying.
All righty. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go into the application here. So this is the proposed showcase. I'm just going to open up a little bio. I'm just going to use U2's material for fun. So you can, you know, if you've got a description already kind of in the can, you can certainly use that already. I'm just going to plonk some text in there. And for us, this is the only question we ask in this section. There's a lot of other applications that ask some additional things, but for us, this is really all we want to know, is what can we expect to see in the showcase. So I'm going to go task done again. So you can see currently this is in the save position. Our contacts are now completely saved, and we can go on to touring info. So here's where our fees come into play. So again, we're working off a per show fee. So when we say 8 or more shows, we don't want to know what your price is to come out here and do 8 shows. It's if you come out here and do 8 shows in 10 days, what is the per show fee going to be? So I typically tell artists to start here. I mean, you know, the reality is if you're coming to our conference, I think your goal should try to be one of the artists that has, you know, the 5 to 10 or 10 to 20 shows. I mean, that seems fairly obvious, but you know, do the math and see if you can make the numbers work to get here and to perform inside these price conditions. If you do the math and you don't think that you can come here and tour for $3,500 a show for 8 or more shows, it's likely going to be very difficult for our jury to put you through for a showcase, just because you're getting to that level that's going to be beyond a large number of our presenters, and so you know it'll be rather difficult. If you feel strongly that that's not adequate, that you think that say 4,500 is the number, give me a call. We can talk about it. I can consider exceptions if we need to, but I can only say from my experience, having run this jury for 12 years now, I've not really seen anybody get a showcase at more than 3,500 a show, and so that's why we've kind of put that ceiling in here. There's really no point. There's no point wasting your time filling out this application and going through this process, and you know, possibly even worse, coming to showcase and not getting any work. You know, we want to make sure that these parameters are sort of met, you know, to give you the best opportunity at work, and you know, and make sure that the performances are suitable for our members. So let's say that in my case, I think our duo can go with it at $3,000, and if we do, you know, maybe 3,500 for 4 or more, 4,000 and 4,000. Let's say that I've got to come from, let's say I'm based in Halifax. So right off the bat, you know, there's $2,000 of airfare probably. So really that one show fee, that $2,000 of airfare is built in there, and I'm really only going to net, you know, probably around 1,500, maybe less, right? Where if you amortize that over, you know, more shows, then your per show fee can go down, because that $2,000 is now spread out over 4 to 7 shows, as opposed to all that airfare being built into one, right? So typically Saskatchewan artists, there's actually not a lot of change in the per show price, because the reality is you're based here, it's gas and accommodations every night. It's not, there's not that airfare to be amortized. So quite honestly, if you're a Saskatchewan artist and all your prices are basically the same, that's likely fine. And I don't think it would be detrimental to your application at all, okay? Number of performers. So again, I'm gonna say that I'm a duo. I'm gonna put that in there like that. And again, this is important for us to know through the application process. I do review the applications before they go to the jury. So for example, if this pricing above came in and this was for an 8-piece band, I'd have a conversation with that artist and I would say, I don't really think you can tour 8 people on the road for $3,000 a night. I mean, it's going to be, there's not a lot of meat left on the bone there, right? So, you know, I will have those conversations around budget with artists if I think that it's not realistic what they're proposing. So that's why we do ask for this number there. If there isn't any additional info that you can provide for additional programming that you can do beyond your a community performance, you can select those there. If you do residencies, if you do French language, Spanish, if you do master classes, workshops, school programming, lectures, whatever it can be, you can put that in there. We do ask this additional question: are the fees above inclusive of fuel, meals, hotels, and tech as explained in the showcase criteria? So we do ask you, have you included all these expenses? Again, if you've put the prices in there, but you say, but we need 5 hotel rooms and we need, you know, we're a band of 8, so we need $300 of meal buyouts. Well, that $3,000 price you put is actually like 4,000, right? So, you know, our jury would have to take that into consideration if they think they could put you through for that. So in this case, I'm just going to say, yes, they do. Task done. Go on to the photos and docs. So this is all the stuff we just talked about before. You can choose a file there, and I'm not sure if you can drag and drop or not. Where did I downloaded some photos. Let's see. Oh, I did. Okay, so that upload happened. That upload happens. Bio. And I put this in. Okay, let's do the PDF. So an EP, so the 2 photos are required. The bio is required. The EPK 1 sheet is not. The reality is most of the stuff that's going to be on your EPK 1 sheet is going to be included in the application. So you don't necessarily have to include it. If you do have a lovely 1 sheet though, certainly feel free to include it. Then we get into the technical requirements. So as I mentioned, it gives you the option to submit 3 files. So a stage plot, lights and video and sound, or you can submit all tech in one file. So I've put, I'll just pull up this, I've got the stage plot here. So I just pulled a stage plot off the internet. It just looks like that, right? Which is enough, certainly enough information for our showcase tech guys to figure out what you're going to need. You know, if you had an input list or whatever as well, you could certainly include that as well. Let's get that in there. Load in and strike time. So this is for an actual performance. So, you know, if you're a duo, really your load in strike time probably, you know, with sound check, maybe 60 minutes. So you do 60. And is there any other technical requirements? So, you know, this could be something like if you're a fiddle step dance band and needed a sheet of plywood, you can include that in there. If you do require a grand piano, you could do that. So let's say that, let's say we need a grand piano tuned day of, and then I'm going to say, please note, if informed, I could spell, we can provide. Okay, nice spelling, great. So you can put something like that in there, right? Because not all of quite a few of our presenters have a grand piano, but not all of them. And so quite often, they run into a situation, well, is there any way we'd really like that artist, but, we would like to, is there any way they can bring in an electric piano or something like that? So that might be something you can add in the additional tech requirements. There is a supplementary file here. And again, so this is for something if, my dog's freaking out, sorry. If there was something included or not included in the application that you thought it was important that the jury see, maybe that's something you could put here. So perhaps there was a, maybe you had a one sheet of a workshop that you did that was well received by a school or by, a senior center or something like that. You could put that in there. If there was a, a great 5-star review from the New York Times, whatever, you can include that kind of thing there. And there's a description here. So, if I had one of those here, I would say something like, here's my review from the New York Times in 1986 or whatever. Here's my mugshot, whatever the case may be. Okay, so we're going to say that task is done. So you can see as we go through, all of our check marks are getting done. We've just finished this. It says this is currently done. Once we finish audio and video, it will be completed. So we'll get into the audio and video. So for the video samples, I've got a couple here. Submit, I'm going to submit video links. So again, you don't have to submit video links, but my experience has been video is the #1 asset that our jury looks at when determining whether to consider an artist for a showcase spot or not. So I strongly recommend you consider doing it. There are some recommended link types and non-recommended link types here. So it is important that you do consider that. We have developed a jury tool that does use embedded videos. So we've seen quite a few artists maybe that have set their, where their settings will not allow for embedding, which causes a bit of an issue for the jury. We still include the links for them. So if the video is not embedded, the link is below, they can always, go outside the jury tool to either YouTube or Vimeo to view the video. But it's just kind of nicer if it's inside the application. So in my case, I do have a nicely formed URL there. If this was a longer video and you did not grab the timestamp in the URL, if you use YouTube, there's an option to insert the time code, and I'll show you that in the next URL. And the time code videos will embed and start at the right time in our jury tool, but you also have the option of adding it here. So if you, let's say for example, somebody filmed a 1-hour show and it's the night before the application's due, and you really want that song at the 11-minute mark, right? You could come in here and put 11 minutes, and then the jury tool, the embedding in the jury tool would automatically start that video at the 11-minute mark. The other video option is if you use the timestamp from YouTube, again, these will embed. It basically just adds this, adds a little bit of code to the video at the end here. This T equals 1,719 seconds from the start. Okay, so both of those video URLs will work as long as the privacy settings are set to public and embedding is allowed. Okay, we're going to say that task is done. Oh, we got a problem. Where's my error? Oh, I have to say the 0 hour there. Okay, so that is, it's not at the 1 hour, the 2 hour. You do have to actually put a value in there. Okay, so there we go. And so that's really the entire application. We can come into payments, and I'm not going to go through the payments just because I don't want to pay. I'm not actually an artist. The only thing that I would say, if when you do get through the payment portion, once your payment goes through at PayPal, make sure that it kicks you back to the application, okay? Once you're paid, it will show up as paid, but we have seen the odd time where once the PayPal payment is finished, if you click out of if you close your browser down right there, there is a little bug that every once in a while will say that your application is incomplete, even though all the steps are actually complete. So that's just one little tip there that will save you a little bit of headaches once the application's closed and we start going through the applications. So that is that's the application process. So right now we do have an early bird deadline of April 24th. The actual deadline right now is, I believe, May 9th, which is the May 9th, second Tuesday in May. So there is, about a month to go until the applications are closed. So you do have some time to get some assets together. Continue, if you have any additional questions you want to ask me, certainly reach out and I will do my best to get you some answers. And yeah, that's pretty much the process. We typically, our jury typically reviews the applications through the month of May. And we always let artists know, usually by the middle of June at the latest. With our showcase the second week in October, we want to make sure you have at least 3 months to kind of plan flights, plan travel and get your schedule together for that. That's it. I do see a question from Michael Lander. I'd like to ask you to review our application. Should we reach out before or after we submit? I would say before you submit. If you like, if you have any questions, it's best to review them before you submit. That way you get the chance to edit them on your own. I can always edit them on the back end. So if you are in a situation where you've already submitted your application and this webinar has inspired you to change one item, I can still go into the back end and change it for you. And typically what I would do is just ask you to email me the details, so I have a digital record that the change was requested, and then I can make that change on the back end and send you a copy. So yeah, are there any other questions? Okay, there's a question regarding the workshop school lecture portion. Go ahead, JJ, if you want to just jump on the mic.
Yeah, probably easier to talk. Is that, I haven't experienced that before. Is that organized and then booked by you through OSAC to go out to a school, or is there extra pay for something like that, or is that all inclusive of the price?
No, there's extra pay for that. Okay. So typically what happens, I will route the evening public ticketed performances first. So let's say, for example, you get an 8-show tour and 4 of the communities say, yeah, we'd really like this artist to come in and do a school workshop, right? I have an obligation to make sure that the ticketed events get booked first. So once those are booked, and routed, because again, I could run into venue availability issues and travel issues and whatever else. So once those are booked, I can then go back and say, okay, yeah, it looks like we have time to get a school show in Estevan. And I would say, yep, JJ, so Estevan was one of the communities that was interested in a school show. It looks like the routing will allow for that. You have only a 1-hour drive that day. Are you interested? And we'll go from there. We don't ask for the fees right now. If you are selected to showcase, we do have our performing arts directory that we do ask you to fill out. And we do ask that question, how much for some of these additional items. And then, we make sure all of our members are aware of those expenses, those costs when the bookings happen, and then we kind of go from there. So But certainly if we, if I know that there's a big demand for a particular artist for showcases or for workshops or residencies and that kind of thing, in discussion with the artist, I can say, hey, we've got these extra shows, but it might mean an extra day off here or there, or there might be an extra day where, there's going to be some additional, accommodation expenses for you, but, you'll have the opportunity to do a school show the next day or whatever, something like that, right? Like quite often, if I've got to give an artist a Sunday, Monday off, if we can route a school show or something like that on the Monday, it works. And we have had, a few master classes happen, songwriting workshops, things like that happen Sunday afternoons as well. So, we actually don't actually book that many of those. Last year, I think we had about a dozen scheduled, and about 6 of them didn't happen due to COVID reasons. We had an artist who, when we scheduled them, was all ready to do them, but then ended up going through long COVID about 3 months before the tour, and just didn't feel like they should really take on that extra work when there was these ticketed shows to get done as well. So
Last question, thanks for answering that, is with your drop down windows for the budget, the increments are $250. Is there a way to amend that?
no, no, not really. And honestly, this application is used by 11 different organizations, right? So we did have to try and find some middle ground and come up with some denominations that kind of works for everybody. When you get to our performing arts directory, then I think you can put in any price you want. So you can add some, you can get down to the, the nitty gritty of it really if you need to there.
Okay, thanks.
And honestly, that's really the pricing. This price, our members actually never see the pricing that you put in the showcase application. They'll see the price that you put into our performing arts directory. So obviously I'm going to look at it and make sure that it's close, right? Like if you say, I'm going to tour these shows for $1,500 and then you fill out our directory and it's $3,000, I'm going to say, the jury put you through at 15, right? But, the reality is, other than a solo artist, I can't imagine anybody really being out touring at, $1,500 anyway. And I've, on many occasions, seen a band put in for an artist fee that I thought was too low. And I've called them prior to the showcase application and saying, you realize what expenses we're expecting you to cover. I don't think you're asking enough money at, I think a more reasonable number would be X, that kind of thing. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Question there. Skip, what sorts of venues are there for touring in Saskatchewan? Give me a bit of a picture of the diversity of performance spaces. Yep, they are diverse. There are, so of our 32 members that present performing arts, we have 8, which are larger theaters, professional type theaters with full tech and all that kind of stuff. And then the other, it is 24. Those are smaller and in the rural communities, right? And we basically call them the meat of the organization. And those are really the venues and the presenters that we're looking to make sure are covered by the showcase performers. And there you're going to have everything from opera houses built in 1904 to town halls, to multi-use facilities, to old vaudeville type theaters, and nice little intimate theaters, to school gymnasiums. It's really right across the board. And it's one of the reasons we also suggest people take their own tech, because the range of tech in those communities is also vast, or the range is vast. Any of the Saskatchewan artists will probably tell you, you can walk into some venues and go, oh yes, Here's in leader, for example, here's Trina. There's a good soundboard operator, got a good sound system, everything's great. The next town you might walk into, it might be an old, you know, PV system that was used for bingo the night before, right? So honestly, for myself, if I was a performer, I would want that, you know, stability and that commonality, knowing that no matter the venue, I know the worst case scenario, I can walk in there, I can set up my system and I can make it work, right? And it can be a show, you know, and not having to troubleshoot, you know, some antiquated sound system that's not been maintained, or, you know, or nobody told somebody put it away with broken mics and nobody told somebody, and you show up there and, you know, you've got all these issues, right? So that is definitely, you know, an issue, and one of the reasons we do ask artists to take their own tech. So you played in Lloydminster, which is a decent little theater. Yeah, so Lloydminster would be one of our 8 larger, more professional presenters. Okay. Any other questions? Well, if there's nothing else, we've hit about 1 hour right on the nose. I'm actually not that good. I'm usually way long, but if there's no other questions, we will wrap it up. Again, I'm available at any time. Give me a call, send me an email. I'm more than happy to discuss this further, discuss your application in particular, and go from there. I will send a recording or a link to the recording for anybody who attended or anybody who registered, so you can review as well. If that's it, we'll wrap it up. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.